Ready to roll. Welcome back, Golden Black Live. Thank Rob Hummel, Etwan Moore, and Dr. Andy Messakar for joining us. This is the A-team now for segment 3. This is Brian Newbert and Tom Dienhart joining me. And Tom.
I'm Murdoch.
Down there.
We get punchy by the time we get this part. But Tom, no one's talking about whether Aiden O'Connell's playing, are they? No, I mean it's an ongoing story. Obviously, a weekly dance, or it seems to be the last 2 weeks. The Purdue quarterback, you'll be traveling to Minneapolis, and it will be interesting whether he plays, and give us the latest, or at least maybe even a little bit of Swami on what you think just might happen.
Yeah, well, there's actually still another long list of guys who will not be participating in Saturday's game. But of course, Alan, the headliner, the main attraction from a Purdue standpoint, obviously, is the quarterback situation, right? Will he or won't he? Aiden O'Connell, of course, last week we did this dance, guys, game time decision. News broke on that on Friday. Then we all found out Saturday, about 90 minutes or so before kickoff, that he was out. Here we are again about a week later. Aiden O'Connell is still a game time decision. Probably find out 90 minutes or so before kickoff Saturday if he's playing or not. Get a lot of mixed signals, guys.
Yes, we are.
I guess if I was really, from things I've heard, guys, and if I were really to make a guess, I guess I'm leaning towards where we got a good chance to see number 16 on Saturday. 60-40, I'm going to say. 60 he plays, 40 he doesn't. I'm leaning toward this having a better than 50-50 chance that he's out there on Saturday. Guys, the Boilermakers need him, right? It's no secret. They're going against a Gopher team that's rolling right now. It's going to be crazy up there. Homecoming stripe out, 4-0. Again, nobody's hotter. I know they haven't played anybody. Everybody loves to bring that up when you talk about Minnesota. I don't care. They took care of Minnesota, and they took care of Michigan State last week.
Yeah, they played somebody last
dominant.
week.
So again, Purdue's going to have its hands full, and with or without Aiden O'Connell, it's going to be an uphill climb. With him, hey, maybe they got a shot.
Yeah, Brian, obviously Austin Burton did his job last week, in Purdue, manufactured enough offense to sneak out of Dodge, so to speak, with a 2-point win. How do you view this? I mean, this is it obviously Aiden O'Connell's off to what would be a special season. You'd love to see, if you're a Purdue fan, you want to see the guy play as many games as he can. But this is a interesting, I'm not saying song and dance, because coaches do this all the time, but it certainly is a storyline, a soap opera, so to speak, that someday, hopefully, we won't be doing this week to week.
It's exhausting. I mean, it's just, okay, Aiden O'Connell doesn't tackle either. And Purdue has to be able to stop the Minnesota running game.
Yeah, no doubt.
At least enough to where you're not completely selling out to do so, and then putting the back half of your defense in a pickle, and then getting ripped apart by RPOs and play action and things like that. That is the biggest part of this game. Purdue matching the physicality that's now going to come with some of these Big Ten West opponents that are left on the schedule here. With Aiden O'Connell this season, Purdue's not exactly lit the world on fire, from an offensive perspective. They put up a lot of yards, but you're still sitting here 3 out of 4 games this year with 11 or fewer first half points. That gives you no margin for error after halftime. That does not put your opponents in a position where they have to play from behind. That stuff matters more now. Purdue's got to find a way to score touchdowns, in that first half, one way or another, whether that's Aiden O'Connell, whether that's Austin Burton, whether that's trick plays, whatever it is, they've got to figure out a way to just get on the scoreboard more.
Points matter, don't they?
I'm done.
They count it up at the end of the game, and they say whoever has the most points.
Well, it's not just a matter of raw points, but it's a matter of what early points do to how a game unfolds. Yeah. I mean, Minnesota is going to want to run on 1st and 2nd and 3rd down, and then every 7th or 8th play probably take a shot. And that's where Purdue got ripped to shreds a couple of years ago by Tanner Morgan and all the RPOs, where he played damn near a perfect game, and Purdue had no answers for anything. I wouldn't anticipate that being the case again this weekend, but you have to be really careful. You got to be able to hold up on 1st and 2nd down there against the run. And that's the part of this that really matters. But if you're able to get a couple touchdowns on the board early,
Mhm.
you know, perhaps they have to start doing some different things offensively. Perhaps they feel compelled to, you know, maybe do things a little bit more outside their comfort zone. It's not just a matter of how many points you score or how you score them, it's when you score them too. And that's just something that didn't happen against Penn State enough. It didn't happen against Syracuse enough. And, you know, it didn't happen against Florida Atlantic enough. Purdue ended up winning that game, obviously, but, you know, they had 11 points in the first half, I think, didn't they? Or 12?
14. 14, but
14. Okay.
Yeah, they scored. Yeah, they scored.
Yeah,
scored
14. They both split
on the
14
first
and
and last
13 points.
possession.
Yeah.
That was a weird number for me to mistake the first half scoring 11 points. Who has 11 points at halftime?
I know, but only
Okay,
Iowa.
okay, all right, hold on. I think they're averaging 11 first half points in those
that's
three
right.
games.
That is correct. Only Iowa can score 7 without a touchdown, right?
But
So-
what, you know, one of the hallmarks of, you know, Jeff Brown football when he first came to Purdue was just finding a way to just steal touchdowns every now and then.
Yeah.
It's some sort of play nobody's ever seen before, some sort of trick play that, you know, was effective, things like that. And the deceptives they've run this year haven't really worked.
no.
But it just feels like things are so much more straightforward now, and you have to maintain drives. And that's a hard thing to do when you don't necessarily have the running game to fall back on to, you know, to control the ball, to control the clock, things like that. It's not what Purdue plays for. It's not what Purdue's built to do. Purdue's built to make big plays, you know, one way or another. And I think it's oversimplification here to say that, you know, if Purdue's going to have a chance to win at Minnesota, they're going to have to make a couple of really big ones.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a true statement. All right, you know, the injury list is long. I know we're into week 5. That can be the case in college football. But Tom, you know, one thing that's been concerning has been Purdue's Cam Craig may be out for a while. Brock Thompson also out for a while. Jalen Graham obviously still out, et cetera. Yeah, you know, what do you take? I mean, you go to Minnesota, and Brian's talk about the physicality of this football game and the need to be able to butt heads with what the Gophers are going to bring to the table. How much does that affect Purdue's ability to do so come Saturday late morning in Minnesota time?
Yeah, I love that kickoff time. Hey, by the way, it's going to be 69 degrees and sunny kickoff. I asked Jeff Brom about the weather.
Yeah.
You say that now, but there's probably a snowstorm coming in somewhere.
There's no hurricanes
He
up
was
there, though.
delighted that it wasn't going to be frigid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's Minnesota. It'll be raining rabbits by game time, I promise.
but yeah, you know, Brian asked the last question in the press conference on Monday, sort of that point, Alan, about, hey, the physicality of these teams coming up. You got to play bigger. And yeah, boy, Jacob Wahlberg, you know, Clyde Washington, Kieran Douglas. These are their type of teams that they can excel against from an offensive standpoint. But they certainly could use number 6, right? Jalen Graham, their hybrid who plays that star position, a half safety, half linebacker, never comes off the field. Not having him in the lineup, you know, it's not as big as the quarterback, obviously, but if he doesn't play, but still, Graham means so much to that defense and that team. You really need that guy. Maybe next week at Maryland, maybe we have to wait till the Nebraska game, but we know for sure he's going to be absent on Saturday. A big loss for Purdue trying to deal with. I think we've talked already about the dynamic ability of that Minnesota offense, how they can run it and they can throw. And guys, if Abraham's running downhill, getting 5 or 6 yards a game, it's over, man. So you gotta, I think Brian talked about this, you gotta try to at least slow that down and get them to do things they don't want to do and still try to pass the football. But you know what, guys, of the players out Saturday, you know, Cam Craig, Brock Thompson, King Daru is out too.
Yeah.
The 3rd game in a row. They can absorb King Daru's loss. They can absorb Cam Craig's loss. We talked about Jalen Graham. I still think not having Brock Thompson out for this will be the 3rd game is big. We're almost halfway through the year and we're still looking for a number 2 receiver for Purdue. We're still looking for Charlie Jones, the yin to the yang, right? TJ Sheffield hasn't really done it. Deion Burks hasn't really done it. Again, I think a Brock Thompson, Charlie Jones tandem would have been just dynamic. And maybe that's what would have gotten the Purdue offense over the hump here the first month of the year. We don't know, but we do know this. according to Jeff Brom, Brock Thompson, in addition to Cam Craig, are going to be out for an extended period of time. So we're not going to see number 13 for a while. It's unfortunate. But you know what, guys, you watch football, every team can complain about their injuries and who they don't have. They all deal with it. The good teams can somehow absorb it and get that proverbial next man up and just keep marching on. And Purdue's been doing its best so far, but boy, again, we're going to wade 10 feet deep into the pool when it comes to competition from here on out. These Big Ten teams coming one after the other. It's only just beginning as far as the physicality of the football goes and the potential for more guys to get banged up too.
Yeah, even Brian Mershon Rice, who I don't think we've had a sighting of catch since game one.
He's
right?
healthy too. He's healthy.
Yeah, and that's been kind of surprising to me based on what we see. Brian, you look at, you've been watching Purdue football for a long time, but the abundance of offensive line injuries have been interesting. And you hope Cam Craig can get back to the field at some point in time, but it's been an interesting dynamic, an interesting challenge. I suppose maybe it's not all that different at Purdue than any place else, but those kind of injuries, I know that Jeff Brom's got more depth on the offensive line than he had last year at this time, but it does cause you to have to dig deep in terms of that position.
It used to be where with offensive linemen, the shoulders were the real problem.
Yeah.
A kid would hurt his shoulder early in his career, and he was screwed, for lack of a better term. Now it seems like backs.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are, I have no idea if this happens more at Purdue than anywhere else. It would be irresponsible for me to
no doubt
suggest it does. It just seems like a lot. Wide receiver too. I mean, it's just it is exhausting following the week to week who's going to play and who's not, because Brock Thompson has surgery after last season, after he obviously played really well in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
And then he plays and then he doesn't play, and it's a week to week thing, and now he's out for a while. Last year Abdul Rahman Yassin is out, and then he's in. He makes a huge catch against Illinois, and then we never see him again. It is exhausting following all of this. Now, that being said, I'm sure it's exhausting being the coach of a program where there are so many moving parts, but I don't want to say anything like this happens more at Purdue than everywhere else, because I have no idea.
Yeah,
I can't. Football obviously is a sport where injuries are obviously a big part of it, but just this constant transactions column that seems to be like a week to week story. I know coaches get exhausted being asked about injuries, but
yeah,
I mean, look what we're talking about here. It's every week it's important players who maybe they'll play, maybe they won't. And then we're watching warm-ups and we're trying to figure out who's going to play. And, what I always say to people who don't like being asked about injuries, I can't think of a better story for the media to be responsible to cover than who's going to play. I mean, that's really important. But there are a lot of comings and goings, and I guess we'll find out on game time who this week's comings and goings are.
Hey, quick too, Ray, real quick on that front. Daniel Johnson's going to start again at right tackle for Purdue, but one guy we haven't talked about is Reese Taylor. He was like Gaden O'Connell, a game time decision, according to Jeff Brom. And I posted a story this week about just the lack of depth in the secondary, guys. All four starters played every snap last week. The snap counts have been off the charts for those guys. We know T. Denson hasn't played at all this year. They didn't play Bryce Hampton one defensive snap last week. He's the guy that got beat for the TD pass at Syracuse. Look for him to play more this week, according to Brown. Maybe we'll see Brandon Callaway. Again, Reese Taylor, will he play or won't he play? Purdue knows they got to get some relief to those guys in the back end, because they're asking Cam Allen, Sanusi Kane, Corey Trice, Jamari Brown play a lot of football.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's going to be it. All right, I want to get one question in, and we're going to be talking a lot about this in the next few months, but men's basketball opened up practice earlier this week. Brian, I know the headline was Zach Edey's out for a period of time. Just an overall quick impression of what you saw, and I know it's not the first time you've seen these guys, and it's weird how the practice works now. Not the October 15th deal anymore. You've been watching these guys for a while, but it's official now. Give us an impression of what you saw in practice number one with Matt Painter and company.
Yeah, well, first off, the Zach Edey part of it, I don't want to make it sound like he's out for a while, because he could very well be practicing today for all I know. It's just a matter of
understood.
he's got a test out of the protocol. I feel bad for whatever gave him the concussion because that's not a small head, and I imagine that's not a forgiving head. No, I think it was interesting watching them on the other day without Zach Edey, because everything they do is going to be built around Zach Edey offensively and, to a certain extent defensively. I think it kind of opened them up to work on a lot of press break. I think it's reasonable to think that with so much inexperience and so little depth at point guard and so few natural primary ball handlers on this roster,
right? Yeah,
I think it's you got Florida State, you got West Virginia, you got Marquette on the non-conference schedule. I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect Purdue to get pressed a little bit this year. And, they're working on some different things that I've never seen a basketball team do before to break the press. But also, you saw a lot of Caleb Furst and Trey Kaufman-Renn playing together. I'm going to call it for the time being that second unit. I think that 4 position is, my guess would be Mason Gillis is probably the leader in the clubhouse to start there, simply because he works really well with Zach Edey, and then Furst and Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think, can be a really formidable combination together. I think Purdue can play a lot of different ways this year, unlike the last couple of years. Offensively, I think Furst and Kaufman-Renn can be really dynamic together, really versatile, really modern in the way they play. And I think defensively, it gives them a little flexibility to actually be able to, get up on ball screens and things like that, and not always be dropping like they have to do with Zach Edey. So them getting to really hone in on kind of some of that stuff, which isn't to say that they haven't been practicing it before, but when the foundation of your practice isn't available, I think it probably gives you a chance to work on some other stuff. And I think other stuff is really going to matter to Purdue this year, because this is a different Purdue team. It's going to have some different personnel dynamics, kind of things like that. And I think those 2 forwards, Furst and Trey Kaufman-Renn, can be real difference makers for Purdue in a variety of ways.
All right, it'll be a fun story to watch. It's gonna be an interesting year from that standpoint. All right, Tom, you'll be making your way to the press box, and maybe like yourself, you'll be awake at 11 a.m. I'm not sure Minnesota. I'm going to bet that it will not be a full. I know they have a big crowd expected, but those students won't be all out of bed by 11 o'clock. Maybe they'll be a little bit late to the party. Maybe that'll allow Purdue to get up a score early.
We're going to be in the library studying.
Yeah, that might be. If they were Purdue, that's what
that's where I was always at.
Yeah,
they're going to be drinking.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, guys, thanks so much. I want to thank Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. He'll be working a high school game tonight. Trent Service is Trent's middle name, and we always appreciate his support. We also want to thank Gordon and the folks back at Mary as well, at WLFI, for making this happen. And we will see you next week heading into Purdue, Maryland. And also some more basketball, I'm sure. We're going to have Matt Painter on next week, along with Tiffany Grimes, Purdue's new deputy athletic director, too. So we should have a good show next week. We had a great show this week. I want to thank Rob Hummel and Etwan Moore for joining us. And also Dr. Andy Messakar from the Purdue Center for Cancer Research, talking about hammering down cancer. Very important topic as well. So guys, have a great rest of your day. And for viewers and listeners and watchers, we appreciate you. We'll see you next week on Gold and Black Live.